Did you know that you might not be changing your oil enough on your dirt bike, but you might be wasting your money by changing it too often? That's why I want to share with you the 3 main factors that affect how often you should change the oil, and then what's going to happen if you don't change it often enough. So the first main factor is where you ride. For example, if you're riding in sandy or muddy conditions, you're going to want to change your oil a lot more often. Why? Well, when you ride in sand or mud, the engine is going to suck in a lot more sand, dirt, mud, and this will contaminate the oil, and it will cause it to break down and get dirty. And when it gets dirty, it's not going to lubricate the engine as well. And once the oil stops being effective at lubricating it, it's time to change it. Where on the other hand, if you're riding in very dry, hard pack conditions, maybe in the woods where there's very little dust, you can often go 5 or 10 times as long as riding in the sand. For example, you might have to change it every 1 or 2 hours if you're like out in the desert or the dunes, where if you're riding in the woods where there's very little dirt and dust and mud, you might be able to go 15-20 hours before changing the oil and not doing any damage to your engine. Factor number 2 is how you ride. The higher the RPM you're riding at, the more the engine is working and spinning, and this is going to make the oil dirtier and break down faster. So if you're constantly wide open or banging off the rev limiter on a 4-stroke, you're going to want to change the oil a lot more frequently than if you were riding at lower RPM. So if you're just putting around in 2nd, 3rd, 4th gear going 10-15 miles an hour just casually on a trail or out on a farm, this isn't going to break down the engine oil as quickly, so you can go longer. So just know that the harder you ride and the more you hold the throttle wide open, the sooner you're going to want to change the oil if you don't want to do any damage. And the third main factor is the quality of oil that you're using. Now, it's the most important that you actually have oil in your dirt bike engine, but if you're using a high quality dirt bike or motorcycle specific oil, you're going to be able to have longer oil change service intervals because it's not going to break down as quickly. So if you're just using cheap Walmart oil, that's fine as long as the clutch isn't slipping or it's not causing engine problems, but it's probably going to break down and get dirty faster, so you're going to have to change the oil more frequently. As far as hours go, how often should you change it? Well, let's say you have a Honda CRF 250F air-cooled 4-stroke trail bike. If you're just a casual trail rider, you'll probably be able to get at least 10 hours on an oil change, sometimes longer depending on where and how you ride. To know for sure how long you can go, you should be checking it before you ride. And if the oil is still at the full level and it's not dirty, so it's still brown and clear, you don't need to be changing it. You're basically just throwing away money at it. But if you are a expert level racer and you're racing in the sand and the engine oil is black and dirty after just 1 hour of riding, well, you're going to want to change it so that you don't do more wear and tear on your engine. So what happens if you just let the engine oil go without changing it, whether you forget or you're just too lazy? Well, every dirt bike engine burns a little bit of oil because of the clearances and tolerances on engine parts, such as the piston and rings. So a little bit of oil is being burned away as you ride. Some burn more oil than others. So if you just keep riding, eventually the oil is going to get low. It's not going to have enough oil to circulate around the entire engine parts. And when there's not enough oil to keep all the parts lubricated, they're going to start to have more friction, which causes more heat. And more heat is what wears out the engine faster, and this could actually do excessive wear and tear on the engine parts. And even if the engine oil is still full, but it's black, dirty, sludgy, it's not lubricating it as well, which is also going to cause more friction, which causes more wear and tear. And if you let the engine oil get too low, eventually the parts are going to get so hot from the excessive friction that it's going to overheat and potentially seize, which is the metal parts getting so hot that they essentially weld together, and this will cause the engine to lock up. And this is going to be not only super expensive to repair, but it could cause you to crash because the engine locks up at any given moment. So you might think that, oh, just riding an extra 5 or 10 hours on engine oil, it'll be fine. But if you know that it's already dirty or getting low from checking it, it's going to cost yourself more in the long run. So how often do you change the oil on your dirt bike? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're a trail rider that wants to prevent crashes so that you don't get hurt and miss out on the rest of life, you should check out this video right here.